Welcome to the Tea of Life podcast, where our mission is to transform every attitude of life by encouraging and equipping you to live the life you love and love the life you live. I am your host, Tiffany Thompson. Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of Tea of Life podcast. I am so excited that you have decided to join us today. I am your host, Tiffany Thompson, as you heard from the introduction. And I am excited for Christmas this year. In Christmas past, I have had a really hard time getting into the season, but this year I am actually enjoying it a lot more. One of the things that we did that I think has actually helped is this year we bought a pre-lit tree. And we have been married for 22 years, and this is the first year we have ever bought a brand new tree. I'm sad to say all of our other trees have always been hand-me-downs from my parents, from Brandon's parents. So this year I thought, you know what? I am tired of putting lights on the tree, and I am going to go buy a pre-lit tree, and then when those lights go out, I'm going to go buy another pre-lit tree, because putting lights on the tree has been one of my nemesis during Christmas. I recognized that and thought, you know what? I do not enjoy Christmas. Putting lights on the tree makes me not enjoy Christmas. And I am choosing to love Christmas this year, which means I am choosing to go and buy a pre-lit tree. So, whatever it is that you need to do to help you enjoy Christmas, to help you enjoy this wonderful season, to help you get ready for the new year, go do it. If it's something as small as buying a new tree, I mean, you know, there are limits there. I'm not telling you to go do some of the other things that you might have popped in your head. No, I am telling you, if it's something as small as buying a pre-lit tree to make you enjoy the holidays, do it. It's okay. You're going to survive. It's going to be okay. So today I wanted to talk to you about something that changed my life a while ago. And I had an incident at a local hardware store today that ended up reminding me of myself when I was actually around 20 years old. At that time, I had a job at the same hardware store that I was visiting today. However, it wasn't the same location, but it was the same company. At the time, I ironically worked in the customer service area of the store. And you see, at this time in my life, when I was around 20, I had just come out of a very hard and very toxic relationship. And circumstances surrounding the end of this relationship led to a lot of bitterness and anger on my part. I felt that I could no longer trust others, and it was at this time that I adopted a mentality that I was all that I needed, and I would be just fine being single for the rest of my life. Obviously, this was years before I met my wonderful husband, Brandon. I guess it was obvious that my newly adopted personality was showing through when a longtime customer met me at the desk that I was working at the time. I can still remember what he looked like. He came in with big smiles and a bounce in his step, just like he did every other day that he came in. He had become a familiar face, and he would always say hi and call me by name. So apparently he came in on a day when I was not at my best, which back then, those days were probably many. I remember him leaving the store out the front entrance, and I remember this because we had just installed a one-way automatic door opening system, and the entrance door would only open from the inside coming in to the store, and it would not open if you were actually leaving the store. Some kind of security issue. They thought that maybe this was a good idea. I don't know. So we did have a button at the front desk that we could press that would allow us to open the door and let the unsuspecting exiter leave, unbeknownst to them that it was actually us opening the door for them. Anyway, he left, and he very soon returned. I don't know if he went out to his car. I don't know if he drove down the street and came back. I'm not sure. But all I remember after that was that he walked back through the front door, and at this time in the correct direction, right? So he walked straight up to me and handed me a book. And he said this: This helped me many years ago. It changed my life, and I think it can change yours too. And that was it. He turned around and walked off. I took the book and said, okay, I don't even think that I said thank you. And then he walked out the door again while I pressed the hidden button. But when I saw the name of this book for the first time, I was honestly a little offended. I thought, how dare him think that I need this? I also thought that the title indicated manipulation techniques on winning friends. But I later learned that I was seriously wrong. By now, you know that I am talking about the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I actually did not read the book right away. It sat on my shelf for a while until I heard someone else talking about it at a later time, and I thought, yeah, I think I actually have that book. So I went home, and sure enough, it was the same book, and it was on my shelf, all dusty because I had not read it. So I picked it up and read a little bit of it then, but still not as much as I should have. Since then, this book has come up more times than I can mention. And I'm happy to say that eventually I did read the book still years ago. So this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, was originally written in 1936 by a man named Dale Carnegie. And it's kind of a help me, help you mentality by putting yourself in the other person's perspective. It's seeing the world the way that they see it and finding a way to align what they want with what you want. Now, what I just said may seem a little bit like manipulation after all, like I said before, but it's really not like that at all. So I believe that having the ability to win friends and influence people per se is a great way to change your own attitudes and to learn to love the life that we live. You see, I was definitely not loving my life back then. And this guy knew it. It was so obvious to this man who only saw me infrequently at the local hardware store that he picked up on it. So I didn't have very many friends back then. I had shut out almost everyone, thinking that that was the most healthy thing for me. What I didn't know was that having friends has been proven to be a positive effect on the chemical activity in the brain, and me not having friends was an actual negative effect on my brain. So Debbie Hampton from mindbodygreen.com, in her article titled, Why Spending Time with Friends Boosts Your Oxytocin. So she says that the brain secretes oxytocin in response to physical touch, but we're not talking about that in this episode. Or when someone shows trust in you, and I would add that when someone shows interest in you, and sometimes just in conversation or when around other people. That is what I'm talking about regarding this life-changing book. So there are 4 different parts to this book. Part 1 teaches the fundamental techniques in handling people. Part 2 is about ways of making people like you. Not like you, like the same as you, but ways of making people like you, like want to be around you, enjoy you as a friend kind of thing. So part 3 teaches you how to win friends to your way of thinking. And part 4 gives ways to changing people without offending them or arousing resentment. All of this adding to positivity in your own life. All of this adding to the influence that you have on yourself to love your own life and also creating the life that you love to live. In part 1, he indicates that no one ever wins an argument. Someone needs to tell that to my children. So even if you think you win an argument, you've actually lost because you've made the other person feel inferior. It's good to ask yourself if it's really worth your time and energy trying to prove something or win an argument when all you get in the end is a heightened sense of pride while the other people feels like crap. So Carnegie goes on to teach us that we should never tell someone else that they are wrong, that we should try to look at it from their perspective and ask questions in order to gain understanding. Most of the time, this actually allows the other person to see things in a different way and begin to see where they may need change in their thoughts, in their perspective, and see where they are wrong themselves. They can come up to that conclusion all by themselves. So in part 2, he says that we can get others to like us by asking questions about them, by asking them to tell you about themselves. This isn't just a general tell me about your life thing. It's asking specific questions about the person, such as what made you want to become a doctor, or where did you grow up, or tell me about your kids. So it's realizing that everyone has a story to tell, their very own story that is not like anyone else's story on this planet. It means becoming genuinely interested in someone else's life for their story. This also means that we need to be very careful that once the other person starts telling you their story, that you don't immediately switch the focus back to yourself. Stay with them throughout their entire journey. If they ask you about you, tell them about you. If they don't. So in part 3 of How to Win Friends and Influence People, Carnegie talks about owning up and admitting your mistakes before you are called out on them, not trying to constantly defend yourself. Carnegie says that doing this tends to lessen your punishment or sentence. You've heard of those who confess to their crime getting a lesser sentence than if they were to fight for their innocence and lose or be found guilty. Those who don't own up to it and fight tend to get a longer, harsher sentence. But those who own up to their mistakes or crime tend to get a lesser sentence. So whenever you find yourself in a situation where you are wrong, you should admit it quickly, ask forgiveness, and move on. Okay? So part 4, he talks about changing others' minds without causing them to resent you. When someone has decided that something should be done a certain way, you should never tell them reasons why they should not do it that particular way, but try to steer the conversation in a way that allows them to come out to that decision themselves. There's a lot less potential for negative reactions that way. Plus, if you have invested in this person by getting to know them as directed in part 2, it is more likely that this person will trust you when they decide to change their mind. Also, you should never rub it in their face, so to speak. Never say, I told you so. All right? So nobody ever likes to hear, I told you so. So just praise them for their decision to make the change and move on as if you had nothing to do with it. So I kind of think that it's weird to think that winning friends and influencing people can have an impact on your loving your life and loving the life that you're living, but it really does. When you treat others this way, it makes a big difference on the influence that you have on them and the world around you. It makes your life and relationships a whole lot less messy and stressful and demanding. People tend to respect you and look up to you when you treat them this way. Also, one of the big things that he said that I forgot to mention is that people love to hear their name. So whenever you can learn someone's name, it's an automatic win for you. I know that I have a really hard time remembering people's names. I usually forget them as soon as you tell me, I forget your name. But I'm working on it. I'm trying. Cut me some slack. But I can tell you when I do learn their name and when I use their name instead of hey or hey you or miss or sir or ma'am or whatever, I usually get a way better response. And it's more immediate and it's less guarded from that particular person. So I was thinking about all this and I thought, can you imagine if we were to just apply these principles to our children? What kind of better life could you have if you weren't always butting heads with your teenager? So I'm sure a lot of frustration and tension would probably disappear, and you could start to love your life again, like maybe you did before children, right? So you can start to love your life again right here and now with your teenage children. So I'll leave you with this challenge today. Start small, start local, try this on your kids, maybe try it on your spouse, or maybe even your child's school teacher. Try to learn the names of those around you, whether it's your neighbor, your coworker, or the grocery store clerk. Try just saying and learning the person's name on their name tag. See what kind of response you get that may be different than the ones that you usually get. So I'd like to challenge you with this and ask you to leave me a comment and let me know how that may have changed the outcome of your situation or experiences. So most of the time you can find me on Instagram, follow me there, shoot me a message. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to Tea of Life Podcast. I will see you next time. If you like Tea of Life Podcast and you've got 2 friends who want to create the life that they love to live, tell them about us. Find us on your favorite social media platform like Facebook or Instagram. Also, right now before you forget, go to Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts and search for Tea of Life Podcast. Hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode. Thank you for listening to Tea of Life Podcast. We'll see you next Monday.